Welcome to the Bloodcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bloodcast. Today, I am attempting something that will be difficult for me because in the last episode in German, in the Pagan Podcast, I had a guest with me and we worked together on this script for multiple days or even weeks. And it was quite a big script at the end, 40 pages and counting. And now for the episode, we try to narrow it down. And now I have to do both parts for this. So I narrowed it down again for quite a bit. But I think I have to read a lot to you because it's just so much script and so much information that we dug up and worked together on. So wish me luck. It's going to be an interesting episode. I think maybe 30, 35, 45 minutes. It took us more than 2.5 in the German version of this script. So a lot of this will be missing, of course, I know. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to learn a bit about this subject and about the story and why we talked about this for more than 2 hours. But first things first, as you know, a bit of personal information, personal stuff that I'm trying to get off my chest here. I am 2 days in, 3 days in actually, without any nicotine. And it feels okay, I guess, when I'm done, when I'm not thinking about it. But I feel this deep feeling that I'm missing it, and I still want it, of course. And I don't know if this is something that will fade in some way, or will just stay with me for forever. Um, Not missing it that much in my daily work, but when I'm really thinking about it, then and I get into this mood of consuming something, then I feel it. Yes, but for now, I'm still good. Let's see if I will prevail, because I really want to get this out of my life. I don't need it. I don't want it. And maybe something that I changed helped me to regulate myself and to just say no to this substance. Because as most of you know, I'm a vivid gamer. I'm always playing some video games in some sort of form, and I don't have much time for myself at the moment because I work. When I get home, I'm tired or try to have some hours with my wife and my child. And that means that for me and myself, I maybe have 1 hour per day, which is not a lot. Um, and normally I fill this hour with gaming, and because it's gaming, I tend to overplay, and that means from 1 hour that I should have for myself, I make like 2, 3, or 4, and then my sleep is deteriorating because I don't get enough sleep. And now I decided to pick a hobby up again that I did maybe 10 years ago. But I remember that it's quite meditative to do that, and I enjoy it. And I can do this hobby for longer than an hour, but when I do it in the evening, normally 1 hour is enough to get me a bit sleepy and I'm not working properly anymore. And so 1 hour or maybe 1.5 is normally the maximum I can do that with. And I will show you because I painted miniatures in my youth, and I never painted Warhammer 40k miniatures, but now I'm trying because I'm really getting into the lore over the last years and played some games, of course, of Warhammer. And I decided to get me some sword brethrens of the Black Templars because the Black Templars are the coolest chapter of them all. And yeah, I'm still figuring it out again. I'm not that good. Uh, I was better once, I think, but I'm trying. and I'm getting the hang of it again. And yeah, I will buy more colors. I'm really proud of the bases I did with those. But anyway, it's a great little hobby that I'm doing, and it's, as I said, really meditative. So it's a meditating experience to paint these, because you have to be really calm to apply the color to the miniatures. And when it's a really small and minute detail, you have to paint it in between your heartbeats. It sounds strange, but it really is the case, because every little shake will ruin this little detail you're trying to paint. So you have to really focus on your breathing and on your pulse. And yeah, it's a really, it's a great hobby. I can't say anything else. That's a great hobby, and I'm enjoying it right now. All right, that's so far from me. Let's start with the subject. The subject is um, a European epos, or a European grand story that we are trying to shed some light on, and it is the Song of the Nibelungen. I don't know what it's called in English. I think in Norse it's Niflungen, and in German it's Die Nibelungen. And the Nibelungen comes from Nebel, from what's it called in English? S- Fog or mist. So the name of this story is a bit of a mystery in and of itself, because the it the main actor of this story, and over all the stories, is a big treasure. And this treasure is normally treasure of the Fog King. And in most of the stories, he isn't named that way, but this is actually why it's called Nibelung. So Nibel is an older version of Nebel, so fog in German. And this is why it's called the Nibelungen. And the Nibelungen are multicultural in Europe. So there are stories of this in North Europe, in North Europe, in Middle Europe, and some different stories are also in all over Europe, actually. And so it's interesting to see where this story is actually originated, and what it can tell us about Europe, or different fairy tales, actually, because the Nibelung has a lot of different elements of different stories in and of itself, because it's a very, very old story. And I think we should start with the oldest story that was written down, and this is actually the one of northern Europe. And this is the story of Sigurd. And Sigurd is the Norse version of Siegfried, the main protagonist in the Nibelungen in Middle Europe. And Sigurd's story goes like this. Sigurd comes from the Vösungen family. The Völsunga is actually the saga where this is written down. So when you try to research it by yourself, Vösungen Saga should be the first cornerstone for this story. So Sigurd comes from the Völsungen family. His father Sigmund, not to be confused with Wagner's Wotan figure. Wagner is also a prominent figure that used the Nibelungen as a baseline for his operas. Sigmund, the father of Sigurd, is a famous warrior. Sigmund is killed in battle. His wife Hjordis survives pregnant. Hjordis gives birth to Sigurd. He grew up with King Hjalprek. The blacksmith Regin, a dwarf and son of a giant Hreidmar, becomes Sigurd's foster father. Regin tells Sigurd about a dragon named Fafnir. Fafnir, everybody who has read the Edda should know this name. This dragon named Fafnir is guarding a treasure. Fafnir was once Regin's brother and became a dragon through sheer greed. Regin pursued Sigurd to kill Fafnir to get the treasure. Sigurd receives the broken sword Gram, comparable to hardship, word, which he had forged again. He becomes a fearless and supernatural strong hero. Part 2, The Dragon Slayer and Fate. Sigurd digs a pit in Fafnir's path and lures him to him. When Fafnir crawls over this pit, Sigurd pushes his sword into his stomach and Fafnir dies from this wound. Fafnir dying warns of the curse of the treasure. One of the cursed items of the treasure is the Andvari ring that was cursed by the gods themselves. Sigurd licks off his bloody thumb while roasting Fafnir's heart. So while he is preparing the dragon, he is eating him. He licks off some of the blood of the dragon from his finger, and this enables him to understand the language of the birds. The birds actually warn him that Regin wants to cheat him and to kill him. So Sigurd also kills Regin to protect himself, because the birds told him to. He takes the ring and the golden treasure. The treasure is cursed and brings bad luck to every owner. Sigurd continues to search for adventures with the treasure. Part 3, Brynhild, Betrayal, and Sigurd's Death. Sigurd finds a sleeping Valkyrie in armor surrounded by a ring of fire called Brynhild. He wakes her up with a kiss. They fall in love. It's a bit like this, how's it called in English? This fairy tale of the sleeping princess in the thorn bush. It's Dornröschen in German. And it's Entangled in Disney, and it's Sleeping Beauty in English. So he wakes up with a kiss and they fall in love. Brynhild is wise, proud, and independent. She teaches Sigurd runes and wisdom and magic. They promise each other for marriage in later years when Sigurd is finished with all his adventuring. Sigurd later comes to the court of Gunnar, corresponds to Gunther in the Nibelungen Saga, or in the Nibelungen song. I will talk about this afterwards. Gunnar's mother, Kriemhild, gives Sigurd a forgetful potion. He forgets Brynhild and who he is. Sigurd helps Gunnar through magic to win Brynhild over. There's a bit of contest to achieve her hand in marriage, and Sigurd helps Gunnar with his might. For Gunnar, he overcomes the firewall around Brynhild's castle. In Brynhild's eyes, Sigurd is her husband. So Brynhild didn't forget who he was, but Sigurd did. Brynhild later recognizes the fraud. Her love turns into hate. She feels betrayed by both men. Brynhild pursues Gunnar's brother Guttorm to kill Sigurd. Sigurd is stabbed through the heart in his sleep. Only there he is vulnerable. He dies, laughs in death, and thinks of Brynhild. When Brynhild learns of Sigurd's death, he falls into her sword. Both are burned together, a double romantic death, a bit like in Shakespeare. Brynhild is often depicted as the most tragic figure in the poetry. The treasure remains cursed and causes further disasters, e.g. in the saga of the Niebelungen. The motif of the cursed ring influenced, for example, Wagner and Tolkien. So the One Ring in Lord of the Rings, it comes from this story actually. The Vösungen Saga ends with the demise of the entire family, a real mythical curse. Sigurd lives on as the archetype of the tragic dragon slayer in Nordic poetry. The sources are the Vösungen Saga, as I said before. It was found again in the 13th century in Iceland, but goes back significantly older through all the traditions. The Edda songs like Fafnismal and Reginsmal and Grifumal tell individual episodes in parallel. The fabric was known, so the fabric of the story was known through Scandinavia and even influenced runestones and tapestries. So this is the first story, the northern story of this song. And it goes far back, maybe 1,000 after Christ, and the first um, document we found of it written down is actually the Vösungen Saga in the 13th century. So now we come to the Central European version, the oldest one. It's the Nibelungen song, and it is also around the 13th century, maybe even the 12th century. And it was written in Middle High German. It's an epic heroic song in 39 adventures. These are chapters, and it's written down by Anonymous. It focuses, so it is known who wrote it down. It focuses on Siegfried's death and Kriemhild's bloody revenge at King Etzel's court. I will talk about him later. It's a mixture of courtesy, heroism, betrayal, and tragedy. It ends in the complete demise of the Burgundian and then for the empire, the Burgundian Empire. The central figures are Siegfried, Kriemhild, Hagen, Gunther, and Etzel. The version that is taught in schools here in German and is historically the most important. Suspected candidates who have written it are still speculated, and we have three that could maybe be it that wrote it down. The first one is Bliga von Steinach. He was a knight, a poet from Alsace. So it's France today. So today is France, Alsace. Next one is Konrad von Fußesbrunnen. He was a monk and a priest, or a famous author of the time was Walter von der Vogelwiese. Some thought it was possible that he is the author actually, but it's highly unlikely. But I want to name him here. So let's talk about the story and the different parts. Part one is Siegfried's exploits and his death, actually. The song begins at the Burgundian court in Worms with King Gunther and his brother Gernot, Giselher, and their sister Kriemhild. So in this story, Kriemhild is not the mother of Gunther, but she is his sister. Kriemhild has a prophetic dream of a falcon who dies. Her mother interpreted this as a warning of the death of a beloved man. Siegfried, the son of King Siegmund and Queen Sieglind, lives in the Netherlands. Siegfried is strong, beautiful, brave. Among other things, he killed a dragon and bathed in his blood and became invulnerable. He owns the treasure of the Niebelungen and a camouflage cap that makes him invisible and gives him the strength of 12 men. Siegfried travels to Worms to gain fame, not to marry Kriemhild initially. He is received with suspicion at the Burgundian court, but is allowed to stay. He fights in Gunther's name against the Danes and Saxons and wins. Kriemhild and Siegfried gradually fall in love with each other. Gunther, meanwhile, wants to marry Brünnhild, the Queen of Iceland. Brünnhild, like in the northern story, the name is the same. Brünnhild presents her applicants with 3 superhuman axioms built in stone throw, long jump. Built in, I think it's the wrong translation here. So stone throw, long jump. Gunther can only survive with Siegfried's help. He uses the camouflage cape. Brünnhild is deceived, believes Gunther has passed the axioms himself. She marries Gunther and comes to Worms, but is skeptical and still proud and independent, like in the story in the north. On the wedding night, she doesn't want to submit. She ties Gunther with a belt. Again, Siegfried, dressed as Gunther, wrestles her down and takes her belt and ring and helps Gunther to you know. Kriemhild and Siegfried get married after this, um, because Gunther allowed it, because Siegfried helped him with his wife. They live happily in Xanten for several years and have a son. When the family meet, when the families of Siegfried and Gunther meet again in Worms, Kriemhild and Brünnhild get into a fight. Kriemhild boasts that Siegfried helped Gunther to deflower Brünnhild on the wedding night, even shows her the ring of herself, of Brünnhild. Brünnhild is dishonored and demands revenge. Hagen von Tronje offers to kill Siegfried, but not for Brünnhild, but more for Gunther. Because if the story comes out that he didn't had the might to deflower his wife, this could also mean that he could lose his face in the eyes of his people. So Hagen actually was the one that initialized this killing attempt on Siegfried. With confidence, Kriemhild reveals Siegfried's only vulnerable passage between the shoulder blades. Because Hagen wanted to go on a hunt with Siegfried, and he asked Kriemhild to show him on his robe, on his cape, where this passage is, where he is invulnerable, so he can protect it even better, because you know where it is. But Hagen and Gunther lure Siegfried into a trap on this hunting trip. While drinking at a well, Hagen kills Siegfried with a spear in the back. Siegfried's body is secretly brought back. Kriemhild recognizes the perpetration of a wound that begins to bleed again near Hagen. It's an old motive. Hagen shows no regrets. Gunther is silent as well. Kriemhild mourns deeply and swears revenge. She refuses to give up the treasure of her husband, of the Nibelungen. Hagen sinks the treasure in the Rhine so that Kriemhild could not gain any influence. And this is the last part. Kriemhild's revenge at Etzel's court, Aventurian 21-39. After years of mourning, Kriemhild marries King Etzel, also known as Attila, the king of the Huns. Through this marriage, she hopes for power for her revenge on Hagen and the Burgundians. Kriemhild has a son with Etzel. When she has enough influence, she invites her brothers and Hagen to Hungary with retinue. Gunther and his brothers accept this invitation but suspect the danger. Hagen distrusts Kriemhild and kills the ferryman on the way. At the Etzel farm, the Burgundians are initialized, received received in a friendly manner. Kriemhild begins to seek Hagen's life. She demands that Hagen return the Nibelungen treasure to her. He refuses. Hagen kills Kriemhild's son, Ortlieb, in an argument. Thereupon, a huge hall fight breaks out, the Huns against the Burgundians. The Burgundians barricade themselves in the Great Hall. There are terrible battles with massive losses on both sides. Gunther's brother Gernot and Giselher die heroically. Hagen fights to the end and causes a bloodbath. Dietrich von Bern is called by Etzel to end the fight as a neutral visitor of this festivity. Dietrich defeats Hagen and Gunther and delivers them to Kriemhild. Kriemhild first decapitated Gunther, then Hagen. When she finds out the treasure's location, she also kills Hagen. Hildebrand, Dietrich's follower, is horrified by the murder of defenseless prisoners. Hildebrand kills Kriemhild with the sword. Etzel's court is horrified and filled with sadness. The story ends in pain, loss, and tragedy, without heroes, without winners. In the end, the poet laments the great suffering and death of many nobles. The last verse refers to old fairy tale, the traditional story that ends here. So, Pretty fucked up, huh? This is actually the story that I remembered when I was like 15 because I loved the Nibelungen song. But I remember that there was a bit more um, fodder at the beginning of the story because in the story that I read in my youth, we I knew a bit more about Siegfried's upcoming and where he went and how he killed the dragon and stuff like this. But this hall fight is actually one of these passages in the book that were always present in my mind. I love this story. It's so well written. It's so bloody for a book, and it's one of my favorite passages in all of the books. Actually, I love this story because these Burgundians, they are real heroes. They don't have a big entourage. They're maybe like 10 people, and they fight off these hordes of Huns in this hall for hours. And in some stories, they even kill so many of them that the bodies of the Huns um, are stacked uh, upon the roof of the hall because there are so many dead people in this hall. And one of the stories ends actually that they can't take the hall from the Burgundians. It's impossible. So they burn down this hall, and not even that kills the Burgundians. So they are real mythological heroes. These people in some of the stories, and it's really just a mental image that was always there for me, and it still is. I love the story. Let's give a short comparison to other versions because there are many versions, but there are three major ones. Um, One Norse and then three Middle European. I will talk about the second two now. We talked about the 12th century Nibelung song, and now we will talk about the Song of the Horn of Seyfried. It's from the 16th century from the Volksbuch. It's a popular heroic editing, often printed in a rhythm manner. Focus is youth and the dragon adventurers by Siegfried, called Seyfried in this story. Siegfried is more of a strong hay-hoof than a tragic hero. Ends in his wedding with Kriemhild, his death is only briefly mentioned. Many fantastic elements, dragon, giant, and dwarfs. It's the most advantageous and fairy taled version of all the Nibelungen songs. And the next one is actually Die Ring of the Nibelungen by Richard Wagner. It's a grand opera, and Wagner lived between. No, wait. He lived between 1848 and 1974. It's an opera. It has four main parts: the Rheingold, the Gold of the Rhine, Valkyrie, Siegfried, and Götterdämmerung. And Götterdämmerung means in English something like the fall of the gods. So it's a very mythological story of the Nibelungen.